Friday. This is Rich Sherman. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix with Rich. I'm your host on KHTS AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. And today we're going to talk about, as always, all things real estate. And today we're going to focus on busting real estate myths. I put out a thing earlier this week to my past clients, my database, and I said, hey, what have you guys heard? What myths have you guys heard that are just ridiculous, that you know, because we've worked together now, you know that are wrong? And so I got a list of them, and boy, are they funny. They're educational as well, but they're also pretty funny. Some of the things that people believe just slays me. And we're going to get into all that good stuff. But before we get into that, as always, we're going to get into marketing stuff, or market stuff more accurately, let you know where the market's at. And I'll just tell you in a nutshell, the market is exactly where I said it was going to be. I warned you guys about this. I've been talking about this for a year as to what was going to happen, and now we're well into the throes of that. Prices are coming down. That is the bottom line. Housing prices are coming down. The market has softened. There are more properties on the market now than there have been in years. And the interest rates are down a bit, but not enough to really make a huge difference. They've helped with refis, and that's good. But they've not come down enough to really make a difference for the buyers to catch up to the inventory that we've got. So prices are coming down, interest rates are coming down. This is all good news, but it's stagflation at the moment in the real estate market, because buyers know that if they wait, the longer they wait, the more the odds are they'll pay less for a house, and they'll pay less in interest. So with the interest rate and prices both kind of on a downward trajectory, they're not dropping out. It's not, it's not 2008, 9, and 10 where the sky is falling. It's nothing like that. But prices are coming down, and buyers know if they wait, they're going to get a better deal. So if you're a buyer, you're probably going to wait unless you find that perfect house, or you have something that's making you get it done now, job relove or something like that. So the market is just kind of paralyzed, unfortunately. And I've been saying this for a long time. If you've got a house to sell, it better be a deal, because if it's not, nobody's going to buy it. You are not going to sell your house for a couple of percentage points more than your neighbor sold their house for last month. Those days are over. If it's a like property, I mean, if yours is a nicer house, it'll sell for more. But if it's a like property, you're going to sell for a little bit less. We've lost about 2 to 3% of housing value over the year so far, over 2025, and I still think we're going to lose about another percent. I think by year's end, we're going to be around 4 to 5% as far as overall loss, maybe a little bit more. Depends on what happens over the next couple of months. And as far as the interest rate, I can tell you the bad job numbers are what are sending the interest rate down, which is good for us who watch the interest rate, bad for people who need a job. But that's what's affecting it. So let's go over some of the headlines. I always like to do this. So headlines, I get just 3 of them this week. They're all pretty good. A weak August jobs report will tee up Fed to reduce interest rates. That's in the next meeting. I think it's next week. A worse one may spur even more cuts, and this is according to Market Watch on Wednesday. Another tepid increase in hiring is sure to cement a reduction in U.S. interest rates this month, and possibly more cuts after that. Wall Street is certainly expecting a dull jobs report. Forecasters predicting a small 75,000 unit increase in new jobs, with the unemployment rate rising a notch to nearly 4-year high of 4.3%. In a bad jobs report, interest rates go up. Go down. Bad jobs report, interest rates go down. Good jobs report, good employment, interest rates go up. The Fed is always balancing kind of 2 things. They're balancing employment versus inflation. And when employment is bad, interest rates go down. When inflation is bad, interest rates go up. Higher interest rates combat inflation. Lower interest rates Lower interest rates if sorry. Brain spasm today. Interest rates, the way it works is employment rate versus inflation. That's what they're looking at. So if inflation starts to go up, interest rate has to go up to bring inflation back down. If employment rates go up, the interest rate goes down as well. So we're looking for bad employment information to bring the interest rate down. Anyway, mortgage rates tumble on new data. This is also according to Money Watch. Freddie Mac released data on Thursday. Yeah, this report annoyed me. Freddie Mac released data on Thursday, and the headline was, "Mortgage rates tumble." Sounds very exciting. Mortgage rates tumble. That's a headline I want to read. And that rates continue to drop. The number of homeowners who have an opportunity to refinance is expanding. Thank you, Freddie Mac. The only problem is that they didn't really go down that much. They went down about 0.1%, which is still something, but it hardly is tumbling. I mean, it went from 6.56 to 6.55. That's hardly tumbling, but I appreciate the optimism. The third one, economists warn U.S. faces worst job and housing crisis in years under Trump, not healthy. This is a great article. I think it was from Newsweek, if I remember. And I want to read some of it to you. President Donald Trump fired the director of the Bureau of Labor Statistics last month after he didn't like the jobs report for July. Looking at economic data today isn't much better, and in some respects, it's gotten worse. Economics said they're seeing some of the worst job numbers in the last decade. Heather Long, chief economist at Navy Federal Credit Union, said that the United States officially has more unemployed people than job openings, and that's the first time that's happened since April of 2021. That is not a good sign. Meanwhile, the unemployment number is climbing. The hiring rate in the country has fallen to just 3.3%, which is the lowest it's been since 2013. And when it comes to housing, the news is even worse. Housing unaffordability is the worst it's been in 40 years, and it's been stuck there for at least the last 3 years. And home prices and rent prices have shot up dramatically compared to median home incomes, median wages. So wages are not keeping price with inflation. That's the problem, particularly in the housing market. And it's getting things out of whack. That's why there aren't buyers out there right now. That and the conditions of the market. According to CNBC, the same thing that real estate developers have been saying for the past 2 months, quality low-income housing is too expensive to develop and still generate the profits that they seek. The industry is hoping that a government rescue might be on the way. And this part I liked a lot because I like Paul Krugman. I like to listen to him whenever he talks. He's a Nobel Prize-winning economist. Also writing on Wednesday, Nobel Prize-winning economist, Paul Krugman sounded the alarm. The problem with declaring a national housing emergency is that Trump will then want to solve the housing emergency. He has this need to solve things that are sometimes better left alone. Unfortunately, everything Trump is doing that affects housing availability will make the emergency worse. Donald Trump loves emergencies, Krugman explained. He's been in office less than 8 months, but has already formally declared 9 national emergencies, as well as a crime emergency in Washington, D.C. By the way, a lot of those emergencies were fictional. The popular perception that housing has become unaffordable is grounded in reality, and that's just what the data tells us. But the fear is that Trump will follow the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 manifesto, which they call a mandate for leadership, which you've ever read it. It's pretty funny. It's the least leadership thing ever. It should be called Run and Hide. Anyway, rather than helping to subsidize affordable housing with tax breaks, the Heritage Foundation's plan is to let developers drive down cost simply by removing pollution controls. And that ain't going to get it done. Simply removing pollution controls, although some of them can certainly be rolled back, as we just did here in California with AB 130. But most of them are there for a reason. I like clean air and clean water. I think you'll find most people agree. I'd like plentiful housing that's less expensive as well, but given if I have to choose between those things, I'm going to take clear air and clear water because I got kids. And I think other people will make the same decision. So I don't think that's going to be enough. The industry is looking for a bailout. The industry is looking for tax incentives to build. The buyers are looking for tax incentives to buy. Why aren't we doing this? The government absolutely has the power to do that. Up the mortgage interest deduction for first-time buyers. That would do it. That'd be great for the mortgage industry and the housing industry. Make it easier for builders to build. Get rid of regulation, not necessarily environmental regulation, although that's certainly part of it. Just make it easier to build. It shouldn't take 2 to 3 years from the builder getting ready to build to actually being able to turn a shovel to dirt. It should be able to do it quicker than that. And I know the builders are ready. The government's got to get ready. And it will. It'll adjust. It's just like everything else in California. It's going to take longer than it should. Let's go over some of the raw data, because I think that's where the rubber meets the road for most of this stuff. California real estate July highlights. In the state of California, this is statewide, the number for July, the total number of sales for July of 2025, 261,820 units, which is down 1% versus June and down 4.1% versus July 2024. That's also the fourth straight year-over-year decline. Median price in California is now $884,000. And that's down 1.7% versus June, down 0.3% since last July, and that's the third monthly decline, which brings it to a 5-month low. Again, this is what I'm telling you guys, prices are coming down. They're coming down statewide. Some places are better, some places are worse, but they are coming down. For example, there are a couple of places where prices are actually, the median price is going up. Up in the far northernmost part of the state, because it's so inexpensive to begin with, so people are coming from more expensive areas and moving to less expensive areas to try to deal with the affordability crisis, and that sent their market in the far north of the state up 4.8%. Central Coast is up 1.7% for the same reasons, but the metros are down. Bay Area is down 4.1% on average. Southern California is down 1.7% on average. In the Santa Cruz Valley or other high cost areas, it's down more like 4%. Central Valley down 1.5%. The best place right now where prices have gone up, Mono County. I didn't know where that was. I had to look it up. It's right on the border. It's on the eastern border of California, and it's very, very sparsely populated, but their prices are up 56.5%. God bless them. Santa Barbara's up 32.4%, which was a surprise to me, given the expenses there. Tehama County is up 27.6%. But the prices are declining in places like Trinity County, down 19.2%, Mendocino County, down 15%, and Plumas County, down 14.6%. Unsold inventory index is at 3.7 months, which is 2.9 months a year ago. Again, prices are going down. Too much inventory has come back to the market too quickly. And supply and demand. Even if demand remains constant, which it's not, demand has gone down as well, but even if demand were the same as it was a year ago, the number of listings has gone through the roof. We're up, I think, 33% in the last month. We're up about 40 or 50% over the last 6 months. Last 3 months. Last 90 days, we're up almost 60% the amount of listings that have come on the market. And they're not moving. So they're sitting, which is the other problem. So active listings are up 33.7% year over year, which is at a 69-month high. We have more property currently available for sale in the state of California than we've had in the last 69 months. That's a lot. That is a glut. That is too many houses on the market, which is going to continue to cause prices to go down. It's just supply and demand. If demand remains constant, which it has, and it's gone down too, and supply increases, prices go down. It's just the way it works. Again, it's not a prophecy. It's just math. What all this means, buyers have more choice, slower pace, slightly softening prices, stronger negotiating position for buyers. For sellers, price strategy matters even more. Get your house priced under the market, not over the market. You cannot bring in your house and price it more than it's worth and expect the market to catch up with you. You need to price it for less than you think it's worth and get to the market before it gets to that point. If you're really smart about it, what I would advise is you price it really, really inexpensively so you can start a bidding war, because that's where you're going to get the most out of houses these days, where you get two more people who want it. And that's just not happening. We're not seeing a lot of multiple offers. That's gone away about 6 months ago. And the market is just slowing even more than I thought it would, because everybody's waiting for the next shoe to drop. Everybody's waiting to see what happens with the interest rate. I'm here to tell you it's going to go down. It's not going to go down a lot. I don't think we're going to get under 6% by year's end. But we'll get under 6.5%. Slightly, 6.4, something like that, probably by the end of the year, which isn't a huge drop, but it's going to be a drop. And the Fed's definitely lowering the interest rate at the next meeting. I don't think it's going to affect the market much when they drop the interest rate at the next meeting, because the market's already priced it in. The bad jobs report, the revision of the jobs report, told them that it was going to come down, and so the market's already lowered the rate. That's why the rate's lower now than it was a few months ago. But I don't think it's going to get much, much lower, and no matter what the Fed does. Personally, I think the Fed's going to drop about a quarter point. I think the market's going to yawn. I don't think they're going to really react to it, because I think the market's already done the correction that quarter point is going to be catching up with, because as usual, the Fed is late to the table. I don't agree with President Trump on a lot of things, and he is the one who picked the head of the Fed and a lot of the board members that are there, so he has only himself to blame. But I do think the Fed is too slow to react. They were too slow to raise the interest rate coming out of the pandemic. They were too slow to react to the current situation. Right now, the last 2 times the Fed has cut the rate, it's because the market has gotten there ahead of them. And that's not really the way it's supposed to work. Now, the Fed doesn't directly control the interest rate. They control the interest rate on the 30-year T-bill, which affects the interest rate a lot of other things. So they have an outsized effect on it, but they don't control it directly. But that's what I think is going to happen with the interest rate. So that is kind of where we're at. So if you have a house to sell, my best advice to you is make it a deal. If you think it's worth $800, price it at $790. If you think it's worth $750, price it at $700 if you have to. But you got to get the houses moving. And if you're a buyer, take your time. Don't rush. If you don't have to be in a hurry, don't be. Interest rates are going to come down. Prices are going to keep coming down unless you find your dream house, and that's got to be the one, and it's just it. It's just perfect, and that happens. That's how I bought my house. You'll be fine. Even if you buy now and it goes down a few points by this time next year, it'll still come back around. It always does. Hold it for 5 years, you'll still make money on it. But you got to be a deal. So if you're a buyer, be patient, and if you're a seller, patience is not your friend. You need to get ahead of the market. You need to get priced ahead of it. And if you're waiting for the market to come back up and catch you, or that one special buyer to show up and pay you what you want, you're in for a long wait. You're in for an awful, awful, awful long wait. I just don't think that's going to happen. So that's where the market's at. If you have questions about this, you can call me anytime. I'm happy to go over it with you in more detail. I can be reached at 661-714-1400. It's my personal cell phone. I give it out over the air every week. 661-714-1400. If you call and I don't answer, just send me a text and I'll call you back. You can leave a message. I'll try to get those back as well. Messages take me longer. So send me a text and I'll call you back as soon as I can. Again, 661-714-1400. One last statistic I want to go over, and we're going to go to break. Just August. The August numbers for the MLS in Santa Clarita. We're up to 893 active listings. That's 26% more than we had this time last year. However, the pending sales are down 33% compared to last year. Only 163 pending sales right now, or in the month of August. So listings are up 26%. That's active. That's not new inventory. That's stuff sitting on the market. And yet the sales are down 33%. That's just where we're at. In the San Fernando Valley, it's very, very similar. There's not a big difference there. Get to that sheet. San Fernando Valley is same story. Listings year over year up 17%. Pending sales are down 32%. That's just where we're at. Houses are not moving. They're taking longer to sell, and the prices are coming down, and so are the interest rates, and you've got to be a deal if you're going to sell. That's just the reality. And if you're not going to be a deal, you're not going to get the house sold. That's just the reality. So I tell you what, why don't we go to break here from someone listening to the break? If you would, when we come back, we're going to talk about all sorts of things, all sorts of real estate myths, and all sorts of real estate misconceptions, and all kinds of silly stuff that I hear from people on a regular basis. Some of my clients are nice enough to send me, and we're going to go over those. I think you'll get a kick out of that and maybe learn something too. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Sherman, on KHTS, AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Sherman, on KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220, your hometown station. Thank you guys for listening through the break. Okay, the whole rest of the show, first part was market stuff, which is kind of depressing, to be honest with you, as to where the market's at, because it's kind of frozen over at the moment. Not a lot of good stuff happening. But I got a whole list of things that will be a little bit more interesting, I hope. We'll learn a thing or two and laugh a little bit. These are real estate assumptions that just are not true. These are debunking real estate myths that I hear on a regular basis. I got a lot of these from running around the office, talking to the realtor friends of mine, other industry people, and I got a bunch from the clients. So I think you'll get a kick out of this. Because these are things that are just, this is the way people think it is, and they're just wrong. This is not the way things work. My wife and I were talking about this morning. I was getting ready for the show. I have a lovely aunt who's in her 80s, and she's a lovely woman, and her name is Esther, and we love her very much. Hello, Aunt Esther, if you're listening. And she is a lovely woman, but she thinks she's an expert on everything. She's just one of those people who, no matter what it's, you could say, I don't know, I went to the museum and I saw a samurai warrior, and she'll know something about samurai warriors, and you'll be wrong about it. And she's a bit on the annoying side. And ever since I've been in real estate, I've been doing this now for 34 years. I started when I was 19. She always, whenever I see her, she offers me advice, real estate advice, and she's always wrong. So this is dedicated to her, because a lot of these I've heard from her over the years. So let's talk about the stuff that's kind of my specialty. For those of you guys who know, who listen regularly, who know me, you know that I specialize in distressed properties and fixing people's problems and getting them out of foreclosure and keeping them in their houses and stuff like that. So I got a lot of foreclosure stuff and a lot of bankruptcy stuff. So let's start with the foreclosure stuff. I got all kinds of stuff. Let's start with the foreclosure stuff. Here's one of the most popular myths there is. Once the foreclosure is started, I can't stop it, and I'm going to lose my home. That is completely ridiculous. If you happen to have a house that goes to foreclosure, don't freak out. You got all kinds of stuff. I mean, get motivated. There's stuff you got to do, but there are all kinds of stuff you can do to defend yourself. You can go to the bank, start off with that, go to the bank, ask them if they have any programs that'll help you. See if you can get a loan modification or some sort of forbearance or a deferment. Those are all options. Call me, I'll help you out. We'll figure it out for you. But just because somebody filed a foreclosure doesn't mean that the jig is up. That is not it at all. In California, the way it works is when the bank files a foreclosure. This is actually the filing of it. First of all, we'll back up from that. First, in California, you have to be 4 months, 120 days. You have to be 4 months late on your mortgage for them to file a foreclosure on a first. So you're 4 months already. Then they file a notice of default, which is public record, and it's a lawsuit, so the bank's telling you they're taking your house, and it's public. But when they file a notice of default, you got an additional 90 days. Then at the end of that 90 days, and you should be defending yourself during all of these periods, during that 90 days, at the end of that 90 days, the 91st day or thereafter, the bank can then file what's called a notice of sale, NOS. And then they must, by statute, they must wait an additional 21 days or thereafter before they can conduct the foreclosure sale. So it's 4 months, plus another 3 months, plus another 3 weeks. So you got 7, almost 8 months from when you stop making payments till they could do it, till the bank could effect a foreclosure if you did nothing and if the bank was really on task. I'm here to tell you, it usually takes closer to 9 or 10 months for them to do their thing. And if you start defending yourself along the way, and when I say defending yourself, call the bank. What options do I have? Call me, I'll help you call the bank. What options do you have? You could file a bankruptcy. There's all sorts of stuff you can do to defend yourself. So yeah, just because a foreclosure gets filed does not mean that you're automatically losing your house. It does not mean that the jig is up. Next one. Once the foreclosure starts, even if I could gather the money, I can't stop it. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. That is completely, totally wrong. Everything about that sentence is completely incorrect. Up until literally a minute before the foreclosure sale takes place, although you're wise not to cut it this closely, you can always reinstate your loan. You can always bring in the amount due, get it to the bank, get them to acknowledge they have it, and they must stop the foreclosure sale. And you can do it up to the minute, technically you can do it up to the minute that they conduct the sale. Now, I would try to do it at least 5 days before. It'd be a lot smarter for you, lots less stressful. But yes, of course you can bring it current and get yourself out of foreclosure. Of course you can. If I miss one payment, the bank will foreclose. That's another one I hear a lot. If I miss a payment, the bank's going to foreclose immediately. Banks are so aggressive. Yeah, banks are aggressive, and a lot of banks are. But that's not true, as we just discussed. 4 months. It's the law in California. 4 months before they can do much of anything. I mean, they'll send you letters and they'll get all sorts of stuff, but they can't actually affect an NOD, which is really the legal action that starts a foreclosure, notice of default, in a non-judicial foreclosure, and that's what most of them are, for at least 4 months. So you can miss a payment. I wouldn't advise it, but you can certainly miss a payment. You can miss 3 payments. Hell, you can miss 4. And at the end of the 30 days for that fourth payment, because it's due on the 1st, late on the 5th, at the end of the 30 days of that fourth one, then and only then can they file an NOD. And sometimes they'll wait longer than that. Matter of fact, often they'll wait longer than that. So let's see. Next one. If a recovery plan makes sense to me, the bank will agree. In other words, I have a reason as to why I've done this, that, and the other thing, and I can now start making a mortgage payment. So the bank should immediately agree with what I have to say. They should take my plan into account. It doesn't work that way. Your plan is unfortunately good for you, but less than irrelevant to the bank. The way you deal with the bank is you've got to find out what their plan is. One of the reasons I'm very successful at keeping people out of foreclosure, which again I do for free, and I'm happy to do it, I enjoy it. One of the reasons I'm very, very good at it, we have an 80% success rate. Nobody has a perfect success rate, but it's about 80%. Never gets any lower or higher, so there's still about 20% we can't help. But 80% we can. When I say help, I mean find you a permanent solution that keeps you in the house. And one of the reasons we're able to do that is because you put together a recovery plan that will make sense to the bank. It starts with you, of course, as the homeowner, but then you have to couch it in terms that the bank is going to understand, appreciate, and more importantly, agree to. You have to work to their terms. You have to dance to their tune. They're not going to dance to yours. I wish they would. It'd make life a lot better, but they won't. So you just have to acknowledge that. The reality of that is what it is. You need to fit their plan. They don't need to fit yours. So that's why I tell people this all the time. People make this basic mistake with foreclosure defense. They always go to the bank with what they need. If only the bank would do this for me. The bank has no interest in doing things for you. The bank has an interest in doing things for themselves and for their shareholders. So you need to figure out what it is you can give the bank, what you can bring to the fore that is good for the bank and good for its shareholders. In other words, what plan do we have that we can put forward where we can go to the bank and say, look, if you guys liquidate the asset, which is what a foreclosure is, this is the way it looks, and you make X amount of dollars, and that's it, you're done. If you continue to service the asset, you make an interest rate, you continue to make money on it. I don't care what business school you went to, you will always make more money continuing to service a profitable asset than you will by liquidating it, at least in housing. Because you're not supposed to keep the overages and stuff. Anyway, foreclosure. So you just got to put together a plan that is in their language that is good for them. That's how you get them to agree. So I get that a lot. Okay, next one. I can only get mortgage assistance from my lender one time and never again. I was in foreclosure 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, and I got a loan modification, and I got in trouble again, and now there's nothing I can do. That is completely incorrect. We have clients in the office that we call frequent flyers. I see them about once every 2 years, sometimes once a year, sometimes even more than that, where we get them out of trouble, we get them into a plan, and then something happens. Life happens. People lose jobs, people die, people get into car accidents, stuff happens. And that doesn't mean that you can't get it, because you've gone to the well once, you can't go again. Remember, this is a money-making enterprise for the bank. Their interest in you is not your well-being. Their interest in you is what money can they extract from the situation. How much money can they make? That is the sole purpose that they exist. How to make money for their shareholders. So the same thing. If you go to them with a plan that works for them and you explain to them why it's good for them and their shareholder, they'll do it. And it doesn't matter whether it's the first time, the second time, the fifth time. I have a friend of mine. We've done loan modifications for this guy so many times over the last 12 years that we've become friends. It was kind of unavoidable to spend so much time together. We've done 5 loan modifications. 5 loan modifications in a dozen years. And we get it done every time. He's just in the type of career where he'll either make a lot of money, pretty consistently, or and all of a sudden it dries up and he gets nothing. And then he'll make a lot of money again. He's in entertainment. So 5 separate times we've got him loan modifications. Sometimes the interest rate goes up. Most of the time it goes down. But 5 separate loan modifications in a 12-year period. That's nearly once every 2 years. So yeah, you can absolutely get, just because you've done it before doesn't mean you can't do it again. Let's go to the next one. My favorite myth. The bank wants my house. No, they don't. The bank wants your money that's in your house. They don't want your house. And if you can give them a way where they don't have to foreclose on your house and go through all the expense and the time involved to do that, give them another path that is more profitable to them, they'll take it. But they say water finds its own level. And that's pretty true with working with the bank. But like anything else, you need to know what your targets are if you're going to hit them. You need to convince the bank that the plan you're putting forward, is not good for you necessarily. I mean, I hope it is. That would be the idea. But you got to go with why it's good for the bank. The bank doesn't want your house. The bank wants your mortgage. And the bank wants you paying your mortgage, or better yet, paying the highest interest rate possible on your mortgage, because that's where they make money for their shareholders, and that's the only thing they care about. Morality doesn't enter into it for them. I wish it did. What's fair doesn't enter into it with them. I wish it did. But it doesn't. So the idea that the bank wants your house is not accurate. It is, however, accurate to say the bank wants the money that you have in your house. So, yeah. Okay, last one in the foreclosure category. If I owe more than my house is worth, I should just let it go to foreclosure. Absolutely not. We saved this one for last because this is the one that drives me the craziest. Well, I owed $900,000 on my house and it was only worth $800,000, so I just let it go to foreclosure. What a numbskull. What you want to do in a scenario like that is set it up as a short sale. It'll buy you all kinds of time. First fight the foreclosure, that'll buy you several months, and then set it up as a foreclosure. Set it up as a short sale. Because I got news for you. You got to live someplace. And most of us who live in Southern California, I would say most of us who live someplace in the United States, have to pay for that. Whether it's mortgage or whether it's rent or whatever it is, you are paying to keep a roof over your head in most cases. Even if you have a house that's paid off, you're still paying taxes on it. So it's always going to cost money to live in a place. If you're in a situation where you can't afford the house or you just don't want that, whatever, your house is over encumbered, you owe more on the house than it's worth, there are a number of things you can do to play for time. I mean, I've got a buddy of mine, we started doing this. He has not made a mortgage payment since the Bush administration. It has been 15 years since he has made a mortgage payment. I've talked to him about him before on the show. One day maybe I'll have him on. But 15 years since he's made a mortgage payment. Now there's a massive defect in his loan, and he should probably sue them, but he's not doing that. And they know they have a defect in his loan, so that's why they can't foreclose, or they would have done it already. So they're just sort of staring at each other, and they have been for the last 15 years. I think that's a bad way to go, because it's great that he doesn't make a mortgage payment, but he's also not building equity, so that's not great either. But yeah, 15 years. So just because you owe more than your house is worth at any given time doesn't mean you throw your hands up and walk away. And if you do want to get rid of the house, set it up as a short sale. You can stretch that sucker out for 3, 6, 9 months. We had one that we just wrapped up with a horrible bank called Essex, who's just awful at this. I mean, really, truly awful at this. Buyer made his offer to buy the house on January 7th. We just wrapped it up last week. Last Friday, we closed the escrow. That's 8 going on 9 months that it took the bank to get this done. It's just a short sale, and the seller thought it was great. They got to live there rent-free, mortgage-free for 9 months. That's a pretty good deal. Saved them about $3,000 a month. That's not bad. Saved almost 30 grand. $27,000. So here's a house that was upside down. We put it together, saved him he in effect made $27,000 through the sale of the house. So he didn't get a check, but he got to live there for 9 months, 8 months, 9 months, without making a mortgage payment. It's a pretty good deal on a house that's you already owe more than it's worth. You're not going to make any money on, and you got to get rid of anyway because you can't afford. That's a pretty good gig. So don't just give up and throw your hands in the air. Talk to a realtor, talk to an attorney, talk to somebody. But find somebody, because if you think that's a good idea, you need to talk to somebody who knows more than you do. So just because your house is over encumbered doesn't mean you should just let it go. Okay. I'm going to do one more thing about foreclosures. Let's talk about buying a foreclosure, the other side of that coin. If you go to buy a foreclosure, the common myth you're going to hear all the time, foreclosures always sell for less. Oh, it's a foreclosure. I got a deal. No, totally untrue. Foreclosure does not mean deal. Sometimes it does, like anything else. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm here to tell you, most of the time it doesn't. Now, a foreclosure that's been around for a good 6 months that nobody's touched, or a foreclosure that's missing a kitchen or can't get regular financing on it for some reason, those are the really good deals because there's a limited pool of buyers who can buy them. But for a regular foreclosure, it's not going to be a deal most of the time. Don't assume just because something is a foreclosure that it's going to be a deal. Don't assume just because it's an open bid process you're going to get it as a deal. You're probably not. Not in Southern California. People know, the secret is out. Houses in Southern California are valuable. People know that. So it's very, very rare that you're going to get a house that's really demonstrably under market just because it's a foreclosure. Now, it may be under market and it may be a foreclosure, but one does not necessarily lead to the other. So just, check your facts. Foreclosures must be bought with cash. Absolutely not. And if you're going to the auction and you're buying it directly from the auction, then yeah, you got to do it in cash. You bring cashier's checks. You got to do that. But normal foreclosures go on the open market with a realtor and you can get financing just like anything else. So it doesn't have to be cash. Here's another one. Foreclosures don't allow inspections. Totally untrue. Of course you can inspect a house, and you're out of your mind if you don't. Houses have hundreds of systems and subsystems, any one of which can kill you. So you got to make, financially speaking, financially speaking, I suppose carbon monoxide could do that, and actually, but anyway, have it inspected. Any property you buy, you got to have it inspected. Always, always, always. Foreclosures always need too much work. Not true at all. I bought a foreclosure years ago. I changed the curtains. The carpet was in good shape. Everything else was in good shape. Mechanical systems are all in good shape. I put up curtains. That's all I did. So sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Again, get an inspection, then you'll know. Last one of the foreclosure section, we'll go to break. Foreclosures have dangerous hidden leftover costs and fees from unpaid taxes, HOAs, etc. This is the one I get the most common. Well, second most common. Most common is people think it's going to be a deal because it says foreclosure. But the idea that a foreclosure is going to have, you got to watch out because you buy a foreclosure, you might have to pay it back to HOA. No, that's not it. When a bank forecloses on a property, when anybody forecloses on a property, it clears the decks. Any other debts against the property must be cleared before the property can be sold. Anytime you sell a property in California, it has to be sold under the legal term is with clear marketable title. Say that again. clear marketable title. What that means is the house can be sold to you as the new buyer without encumbrances, except those that you put on them. You get a loan, there's a lien against your house. You got to pay taxes, there'll be a lien against, etc. But it clears the decks. You don't have to worry about past due stuff. Now, if you're buying it at auction, that's different because you got to make sure you're buying. I had a guy years ago who bought a second mortgage, thought he was buying a first. I warned him against exactly this. He bought a second, they called me up to gloat. And then, which is not a good idea anyway. But then I looked it up. He said, no, you bought a second mortgage. That's what you bought. You still have $600,000 on this house. And he's, no, I don't. He yelled at me, called me names. I said, okay, you're free to your opinion. I'll send you the data I have. I have your email address. God bless. Hope it works out for you. And yeah, he had about 6 months later came back. He said, well, how do I take care of the first? So, and we got to sort it out for him. But yeah, none of those circumstances got to be careful. But otherwise, if it's a foreclosure that's on the open market, it is ready to go. No other encumbrances. Free of encumbrances, ready to go. Those are just some of the ones we've had. I've got a bunch of other ones for you, a couple of bankruptcy ones too we're going to talk about when we come back. But let's go to break here for some of the advertisers. Please listen to the break when we come back. All sorts of more fun stuff, all sorts of other myths that need to be debunked in real estate because these things drive me crazy. I'm shocked at how the public doesn't know these things. So we're going to talk about more of this when we come back. I'm Rich Sherman. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix with Rich on KHTS AM 1220 FM 98.1, your hometown station. Thanks, guys. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Sherman on KHTS 98.1 FM AM 1220, your hometown station. And we're going through real estate myths when we went to break, and I got a bunch of going through. We went through all the foreclosure stuff and buying and selling foreclosure stuff, so you can talk about them and that kind of stuff. And now we're going to talk a little bit about bankruptcy. Now, first thing I will say, especially my friends who are bankruptcy attorneys are listening, I'm sure, Lou in particular, I'm going to do the disclaimer. I am not an attorney. I am certainly not a bankruptcy attorney. And you do yourself a massive disservice if you do not talk to a bankruptcy attorney. My advice on this is just practical stuff that I come along. I see stuff. A lot of my clients wind up filing bankruptcy. It's a good way to defend yourself from foreclosure. If you have a bankruptcy issue, you want to talk to a guy named Lou Esmond. He's fantastic. I recommend Lou. He's the best I've ever seen at this. I've known him for 20 years, almost 30. And he really, truly is fantastic at this. See if we can't get him on the show again to talk about bankruptcy. You need another unit. But let's talk about a few of the bankruptcy myths that I've learned that are inaccurate. My favorite one, I hear this all the time, bankruptcy stops foreclosure. No, not really. What a bankruptcy does is it pauses your foreclosure. It gives you an automatic stay of the foreclosure. It prevents the foreclosure from happening. Now, a bank can go and try to get a relief from stay, motion in front of the court, and try to get the property pulled out of the bankruptcy and foreclose. But that's pretty hard to do, and that's why it's important to have a good attorney. A good attorney can fight off a relief from stay. Bad attorney, you're relying a bit more on the court in your case, which you should be able to do, but I want all three. I want the court, I want the case, and I want the good attorney. So yeah, it doesn't stop a foreclosure. It's more accurate to say it pauses the foreclosure to give you time to work on it, reorganize, whatever, and is a very valuable tool in preventing foreclosures. Next one, if I file a bankruptcy, I'm forced to sell everything I have, including my home. I hear that a lot too. Completely wrong. Absolutely not. A bankruptcy is an opportunity to among other things, reorganize. There are different types of bankruptcies, different chapters do different things. You talk to a bankruptcy attorney for that. The most common are 7 and 13. But you don't have to liquidate everything. There's no debtor's prison. You don't have to walk around with a scarlet bee on your head. It doesn't work that way. We are very fortunate to be in a time and place where there is enough wealth sort of around in general that you can file a bankruptcy and reset. You can restart. It's not the end of the world. It's just a reset. You don't have to give up everything. Married couples must file bankruptcy together. No. You can absolutely file separately. And whether that's a good idea or not, talk to a bankruptcy attorney. Filing bankruptcy means I'll never get credit again. Well, that's just completely wrong. Matter of fact, the opposite is true. What happens if you file a bankruptcy is you'll get a ton, the minute you file, you get a ton of secured credit card offers and things like that because you can't file bankruptcy again. So as soon as you get out of a bankruptcy, as soon as it's dismissed is where they really come out of the woodwork. Everybody wants to give you credit as soon as you come out of a bankruptcy. Because again, you can't file bankruptcy again. So you get the secured stuff when you first file. When you get out, they'll offer you all kinds of stuff. The interest rates will suck, but you'll get all kinds of offers to help rebuild credit. So yeah, it doesn't destroy you. It's annoying. You got to deal with it, but it's fine. It's like anything else. It's like having a financial cold. Once you get over the cold, you get better, you get back to work. Here's another one. You can only file bankruptcy once in a lifetime. Totally untrue. You can file, again, you have to talk to a bankruptcy attorney, but my memory is that you can file every 7 years on one type of bankruptcy, and you can do it you can file a Chapter 7, and then if you need to 3 years later, you can file a Chapter 13. Typically, it's 7 years between bankruptcies, but there are exceptions. So you can do it more than once. You absolutely can. How about there's only one kind of bankruptcy? Bankruptcy is bankruptcy. No, there are all sorts of different types of bankruptcy. My friend Lou has a whole speech about this and whether you own a railroad or not. He can give you the speech, a good speech. But there are all sorts of different chapters. And within those, there are all sorts of things. You got to talk to a good bankruptcy attorney. That's what all this comes down to. My favorite one. I don't need an attorney to file a bankruptcy, and all attorneys are the same. Of all of the ones that we've gone over today, this is probably the one that makes me the craziest. Absolutely not. If you file a bankruptcy, I mean, as hyper technical as a bankruptcy without an attorney, I wish you the best of luck. I have no idea what the statistics are. I'll ask. Let's see if we can find out for you guys. But I'm sure the bankruptcies that are filed by what they call improper by yourself fall apart all the time. Ones filed by good attorneys usually hang together. More importantly, you want somebody who does this all day, every day, and has for a number of years because they have that experience. You want to rely on that. Whatever it costs you, believe me, you're going to save a lot more than that in the long run. You are far, 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 this is not even a question, you are far better off hiring an attorney to do especially something like a bankruptcy. And I'm all for, serve yourself legal stuff, and if you can do it yourself, that's great. But this is one of those things, because it is so hyper-technical, where you're dealing with a trustee and a judge and all that stuff, you want an attorney. And in my view, you want an attorney who's got a lot of experience and knows what they're doing. Whatever it costs, it costs. Get it done right, because if you don't do this right, it will come back and haunt you. Last but not least on my bankruptcy segment, if I file a bankruptcy, creditors will harass me forever. Absolutely not. Matter of fact, the opposite is true. When you file bankruptcy, your creditors have to go to your attorney, not you. So if anything, it cuts out the phone calls and cuts out the other nonsense. They have to go to your attorney. So bankruptcy does a lot of good things for you, and we'll try to get Lou in here to do another show on bankruptcies in the not-too-distant future. But bankruptcy is just a tool like anything else. It doesn't mark you for life. It doesn't scar you. It doesn't mean you can't go on with your life. You can't do this. You can't do that. And by the way, with mortgage loans, we can get a mortgage loan for somebody 12 months after a bankruptcy, as long as you've kept your credit good after the bankruptcy. In other words, you've made your payments after the bankruptcy. 12 months after, we can get you a mortgage loan. Hell, 3 years after, you get a mortgage loan or a government loan. You get FHA and VA 3 years. That's it. So 3 years and 1 day, you can go get a new loan with 3.5% down or no money down. So it's not that big a deal. It is a hassle. It is important. I don't want to downplay it too much, but it's not the end of the world. It doesn't judge you as a person. You don't wear a scarlet bee on your head, nothing like that. So I got a few more general ones that I got from clients that I promised I would read. So I want to go with this. So real quickly, another real estate myth. You have to put 20% down to buy a house. Absolutely not. FHA, we have a program now, FHA, 3.5% down with what they call a 2% rider, which means you're putting 1.5% down. So for 1.5%, you can buy a house. If you got good income, you want to buy an $800,000 house. What is that? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So $12,000, you're in a house. You can finance, you can put the closing cost of the deal, everything else. Talking about a condo at $500,000, 1.5%, what is that? $500, $600, $7,500. So yeah, you don't have to put 20% down. You got 3%, 5%, 3.5%. If you're VA, you can do no money down. There are also 100% down programs, other things. So yeah, no, that's a myth. 20% is good because you avoid PMI, and that saves you a couple $100 a month, private mortgage insurance. There are other good things with putting 20% down. It's easier to qualify. You'll have a lower payment. You'll get a better interest rate. There's a lot of good stuff that comes with 20% down for sure. A lot of good stuff that comes with 30% down. But you do not have to put 20% down. And if your goal is to save 20% down, especially to buy a first house, in my experience, you are never going to save faster than the market accelerates. You're never going to save your way out of into buying a house. It just doesn't work that way. Get in the game. That's my advice. So yeah, you don't need 20% down. Let's see. You should always buy the biggest house you can afford, because if you buy the biggest house as possible, that's how you maximize your investment. No, you need to buy the biggest house that you are comfortable affording. Not that you can afford by scratching and by beg, borrowing, and stealing. You're comfortable. Being house poor sucks. Not being able to go to dinner with your wife because you got to make the mortgage payment sucks. I've been there. I've done it. It's horrible. Buy a house you can afford, not the one that is the biggest that you are qualified for. Be able to afford the house, or don't do it. Let's see. Renovating will instantly boost a home's value. Nope, depends on the renovation. I've seen people spend a lot of money on ridiculous stuff. There are things you spend money on that will get you a value, the things that won't. If you're curious, give me a call. I can do a whole show just on that. 661-714-1400. I'll be happy to tell you what works best. We renovate houses for people all the time. We get a house that's in disrepair. We got to get it sold because it's a distressed sale. The first thing we do is fix up the house. We've got the money to do so because we got to get top dollar out of it. You don't get top dollar out of a house if it's a disaster. So renovating will help, but it depends on the renovation. You got to spend wisely, and you got to put it where the money belongs. If you're going to put in a bright gold countertop, it's going to cost you. It's not going to help you sell the house because most people don't want that. Or purple walls or some of the other crazy stuff I've seen. Let's see. Open houses are essential for selling. Absolutely not. Open houses are great for realtors for finding a buyer for the next house. They rarely, if ever, sell the house you're in. Now, having said that, my mother is rather famous for having sold 2 houses back-to-back at open houses, so that rule, exposure is always good, marketing more is always good, but the odds that a buyer is going to buy your house based on an open house or come see your house based on an open house, extremely, extremely slow. Most people look online. Most people make appointments online. Most people do the virtual tours and stuff, and that's how they're seeing houses. So yeah, open houses do not sell houses. Last but not least, we'll wrap up on this. You don't need an agent to buy a house. Yeah, you do. Now, keep in mind, I am very biased because this is what I've been doing for my entire adult life. You do. To put it shortly, and I don't mean to sound arrogant, I am better at this than you are. If by no other reason, I've done this 1,000 times and you haven't. I mean, you have no idea what fees you should be paying. If I were to tell you that when you buy a house, you're going to have to pay a $500 sub-escrow fee, would you have any idea what the heck I was talking about? Most people wouldn't. Just for the record, a sub-escrow fee is a title fee. And I can explain what it is if you're really that curious. But you need a realtor. You need somebody who, same thing with bankruptcy. You need a bankruptcy attorney for a bankruptcy. You need a realtor to buy houses. You wouldn't go into surgery without your doctor. You wouldn't go into court without your lawyer. What in the heck would you go buy a house without your realtor? You need independent representation, and you need somebody who's looking out for you. Because if you do not have that, you are setting yourself up for failure. So I mean, it comes out of the deal anyway. It doesn't really cost you a whole lot because that money's going to go to that commission is going to go to somebody. If a buyer is not if a realtor is not representing you as a buyer or you as a seller, then the seller's agent is going to get the entire commission. And that's just the way it works. So get representation. Always, always, always. If you're selling, you need representation. If you're buying, you need representation. And I'm not just jaundiced on this because this is how I've spent my life, but I could give you example after example. I won't because we're running out of show time here. Got to wrap up the show. But I can give you example after example where having an agent made a difference. That short sale I was talking about that took us 9 months to close. That doesn't happen without a decent agent. No way. They got a great deal on that house and everybody's happy. So if you're interested, give me a call. If you have any questions, call me anytime. I can be reached at 661-714-1400. That is my personal cell phone number. You can call me and text me at that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I will do my best to answer, and if I don't, I will call you back. But I want to thank you guys for listening. It's been a great week. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you have any questions, give me a call. Thank you, as always, to KHTS for letting me do this. And yeah, have a good week. Be good humans.